and being the not the physical, but where you are with Christ or with God, um, and where you're studying, where you're thinking. How close are you to God? And I just, this was one of the ones I was thinking about going to. Um, is 1 Kings chapter 21, and 1 Kings 21. As I was thinking about different people and where they were in with Christ, I thought of David, and what takes your eyes off of God, or your focus. And I thought of David. Everybody knows David, Bathsheba, but yet David stayed very close. And I just got to thinking about how different people in the Bible weren't close to God, but I was thinking about one of the things that gets us is lust. We get to looking and wanting something different than what God has in store for us. But when I got to thinking of, and I thought about Ahab here, and this account, and when I got to reading this, I'm just going to read this through this chapter, because there's a lot in this chapter. But and when you start off verse 1 here in 1 Kings 21, verse 1, and it came to pass after these things that Naboth, the Jezreelite, had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab the king of Samaria. Now, the first word in this verse, and it came to pass. Do you remember what happened before this? I actually had to go back and go, oh, this is kind of neat. The things that had already come to pass. And I'm not going to tell you because I'm encouraging. That's why it's so important. That's what I want to try to give, my lessons has been about, is for you to get into the Word of the Lord. Read, study. There's things we forget. You read along, you go, wow, I didn't know that was in there. And it was just it's personal. You got to do it yourself. You can't let the preacher do it, because the preachers get up and they preach, teachers get up and teach. There's things they learn that you don't ever get. And that's what I'm trying to encourage you, because the closer you get to God, the better your life is. There's a lot of things you'll go through that aren't so bad with God by your side. When you get close to Him, He's always going to be there as a saved person. But we'll continue on. Verse 2. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it, or if it seems good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. The reason why I picked Ahab here is because I felt like he's seen that plot of land and he goes, I want that. And you'll see in this whole account, his whole focus was on that. But it's neat how things changed in his life with that. And sometimes I feel like I let things get in the way. And there's nothing wrong with things, but what are those things going to do in the future? Well, when you die, they're gone. You don't take them with you. But when God comes back, all this stuff's gone. It's all going to burn up. So what we do for God is more important than what we do for stuff. But here Ahab said, I'll give you whatever. I'll give you a better vineyard, and I'll give you money, whatever you think it's worth. And in verse 3, Naboth said unto Ahab, the Lord forbid me that I should give the inheritance of my father to thee. He says, no. God says, no, you're not taking it. I'm not giving it away. I'm not selling it. It's mine. I'm keeping it because God said for me to keep my inheritance that he give to me. He give this to my family. And here in verse 4, and Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased, and because of the words which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken unto him, for he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my father. And he laid himself down upon his bed and turned his face and would not eat. Isn't that the way sometimes we are? We don't get what we want. When I first started, we read over there, you have not because you ask not, but you ask amiss. And I remember as a hearing and preachers saying, well, if you're not where you're supposed to be and you ask for something, God will give you what he wants you to have. But I've learned when I ask if I'm in God's will, what he wants me to have, I'm willing to take. I'm willing to want what he wants. And yeah, there's still some things I still want that I don't need. Like I want a great big house. I want a lot of fancy car. I'd like a real big fancy car. I'd like a truck. But Lord hadn't seemed to give me a truck. But he's given me my needs. And I think that's more important to be in his will and have what I need than have what I want. And I look out at the world and how, and the Bible even says, you look at the world and the wicked, they have everything they want. But what do they have? Not much. They're not happy. A lot of the world is searching for something. They constantly are searching for something. So here Ahab is laying on his bed in verse 5. And Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him, why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and he said unto him, give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give it unto thee. So here he's telling his troubles to Jezebel. And I thought about Jezebel. The name Jezebel has followed down through history. You never hear of anybody actually naming it. I have never heard of a girl named Jezebel. But I've heard a lot of people called Jezebel. It's a difference. Like Judas Iscariot, nobody wants to be called that either. But hold your place here. Go to 1 Kings 16. 1 Kings 16 and verse 30. This talks about Ahab and Jezebel. And Ahab, the son of Omar, did evil in the sight of the Lord above all that which was before him. And it came to pass, as it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidon, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. Here's where he got Jezebel. And she was from another king, you know, and they served Baal, and he went it because of her. He started following her. He was already wicked, but in his life with her, she stirred things up with him. And you go on here and back to 1 Kings 21 in verse 7. Here Ahab's told everything to Jezebel. And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise, eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. And I think it's kind of neat. I think the same thing he did, or she did, is like, well, you're the king. You're ruler over this place. Why can't you do what you want? But really, he's supposed to be doing what God told him to do, not what he wants to do. And that's why he was upset, because Naboth wasn't going to do what he said. He's just going to do what God told him to do. But here in verse 8, so she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in the city dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters saying, Proclaim a feast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, before him, and to bear witness against him, saying, Thou dost blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him, that he may die. So here, Jezebel, being the wicked person she was, so she could take care of her husband and give him what he wanted, wrote letters basically saying, we need you guys to lie and say that Naboth is blasphemed God and the king, and go out and kill him. Then verse 11, and the men of the city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants in his city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent them. They proclaimed a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. And there came 2 men, children of Belial, and set before him. And the men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. Then they carried him forth out of the city and stoned him with stones, that he died. Here they went ahead and did exactly what they were told to do. And what's wild is, you think, well, they just killed one person. No, they killed his family. They wiped him out. Because in verse 14 here, then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said unto Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard for Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give for thee money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead. So there was no one to take his place, Naboth's place in taking care of the land. So they wiped him out. But what is kind of, I just think about how the wicked in the world they go after trying to do whatever they can to possess what they want, to take over. And this is, Naboth wanted this land. He just thought it had to have it. But what's wild is we'll continue reading on what this cost him. And in verse 16, and it came to pass when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab arose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. He just went. I kind of wonder how they took it. How he took possession. Did he just show up and say, "It's mine now"? And you kind of wonder how that line of business was taken care of then. But he didn't think nothing about it. He knew his wife took care of it, so he went and took over the land. And in verse 17, and the word of the Lord came unto Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. I think it's kind of neat that Elijah is told to go down and talk to Ahab. Where did he tell him to go? Naboth's vineyard. In God's eyes, no matter what we've done, God still recognized that as Naboth's property because God gave it to him. And here in verse 19, this is what he spoke. And thus shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, in the place where the dogs licked the blood of Naboth, shall the dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And this is what Elijah is supposed to go say to Ahab. And you remember when at the very first verse of this chapter, it said, and it came to pass. Ahab and Elijah have some history. They've got a lot of history, and also with Jezebel. And God lets things go for a while, but then God takes care of the problem. He'll take care of the situation in His time. That's something we get in a hurry for. And a lot of times we want things to happen in a hurry, but God, you leave it to God, God will take care of some things. I just remember when things have happened in our family years ago, and I was told, don't think bad about the people who did it. Let God take care of it. It took me a long time to be able to just, Lord, just forgive them. But what was wild was the older I got, life went on, even in their lives, I was praying for them because of their health and things they were going through. So Lord, help me change my mind and let Him take care of it. And God did, and I don't know whatever happened to those people as far as some things, but God did. God took care of it when you let Him take care of it, just like this. But here in verse 20, and Ahab said unto Elijah, Hast thou found me, O my enemy? And he said, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to do work of evil in the sight of the Lord. I think it's kind of neat. Ahab said, Elijah, you're my enemy. Every time Elijah and Ahab were together, it didn't go over so good. And I'm giving you some history. And you guys, I hope, remember those the accounts. We have a song we sing. Elijah's God still lives today. It's part of that. But here in verse 21, we'll go on. Behold, I will bring evil into thee, and I will take away thy prosperity, and will cut off from Ahab him that passeth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and to make Israel to sin. So basically he says, okay, Ahab, you're going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Just like Jeroboam that set up two idols for the Israel to worship. And God actually told Jeroboam, if you'll serve me and follow me, I will make you will continue to be, your ancestors will still be ruling Israel. But instead he sinned. He caused the whole Israel to sin. So God just said, okay, we're done with you. We're going to wipe you out because you didn't follow me. And that's what we need to do. We need to follow God in what he tells us to do, his commandments, to follow him. Here in verse 23, we go on with what God told Elijah. And of Jezebel also spake the Lord, saying, the dog shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel, him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dog shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. So here, you remember the account of Jezebel and how she died and what happened to her? He proclaimed, this is what's going to happen to her. And even anybody else associated with you, or I'm thinking family, if they die in the city, dogs are going to eat them. They die out in the field, birds are going to eat them. None of your family is going. I'm looking at it this way. This is what I think. None of them are going to be buried. They're all going to be. Their carcass is just going to lay there. Nobody's going to take care of them. And here the Lord says, even Jezebel, your wife that stirred him up, she was always causing him more problems. And verse 26. And he did abominable in following idols according to all things as did the Amorites whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. Here, this is just, it's part of what Ahab did. He served all them gods. And in verse 27, and it came to pass when Ahab heard these words, that he rent his clothes and put on sackcloth upon his flesh, and fasted and laid in sackcloth and went softly. That is some pretty hard words to hear. You're going to die, and the dogs where Naboth died and licked his blood, they're going to lick your blood. Didn't say when. Your wife is going to die. Dogs are going to eat her. Your family is not going to get buried. I'm going to destroy your family. Everything about you is going to be, you're going to be wiped off the face of the earth, basically. There's no trace of you after this point. And Ahab was pretty upset. And you just think about this. I mean, it all come about because he went after Naboth's property. He wanted what Naboth had. Here he put his sackcloth in. You don't hear when when he didn't get the land from Naboth, he went and just laid down and was upset. Here, he physically showed more upset. Whether he actually repented, I don't know. But in verse 28, the word of the Lord, and the word of the Lord came unto Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Seest thou how Ahab humbled himself before me? Because he humbled himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his day, but in his son's days will I bring the evil unto his house. So he went about softly. He took it to heart. Whether it was a repentance of sin or if it was just like, I've been caught style. But the Lord told Elijah, well, he won't see it, but his kids will see it. And you know what? That's what kind of hurts. Ahab didn't see everything that happened. But what we do as parents and the decisions we make, because we don't want to follow God the way we ought to, our kids punished. They suffer for some of the things that we do. And I think about that because I look back on some of the stuff that I've done. And I'm not too happy about some of those things. And I ask God not to, forgive me for them. I know He has. And I hope that my kids, when they go through things, will realize that they need to serve the Lord and to follow Him. And, I want, just like you guys, I want them to be close to the Lord. The closer I get, the less I want of the things of this world. And I see the blessings when I'm closer to Him. I see more blessings, see more sin. But for me, getting close has just been a real blessing, real encouragement. And I struggled just like everybody else. Should have looked up the passage that says Elijah went through the same things we do. And I think about how Christ, when He was here on this earth, He was born, He grew up, He lived His life. He went through some of the same things we go through. And that's encouraging to know. And He didn't sin. I know He's God. It's easier for Him. It was, He couldn't sin. But we need to work on not sinning so we can stay closer to God. Encourage you to find out what the said the first verse, and it came to pass after these things. There's a lot of things I didn't realize. When you start studying like this, you start putting time frames together, and it's really kind of neat, the things that actually had happened before. That's why Elijah, when Ahab said, "You're my enemy. Every time I see you, there's trouble." But hopefully this will be an encouragement to you guys to study, to get into the Word. There's so much in there. And it's so helpful to get close to the Lord. And we'll close with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank